welcome to the Austin Topguns podcast. It's Jeff and Richard, and really excited to kick off 2024, although it's already into February. But Richard, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm laughing about that because I had somebody tell me Happy New Year yesterday, and I'm thinking, wow, so we're already like midway through February. What happened? Wow, okay, we're into the thick of it now. So it's funny. I think time moves so fast. It's crazy.
Oh, it's hilarious. I think a couple weeks ago with the groundhog, oh, it's an early spring. And then the East Coast gets slammed with the first snowstorm that they've had in the last 6 years or something like that. They've had a snow drought. So at least to us, it's almost like an early spring.
Yeah, they saw where they dropped the groundhog and they were talking about lawsuits and everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, crazy world we live in.
So. We kicked off our year with our first happy hour in January. Really successful, beautiful night that we had. This week's show, or this week's happy hour, I think we were conflicting with Valentine's Day, so we decided to not do the happy hour this month, which is okay. So everybody, we're going to continue on with our happy hours every month. I don't know. What's your thoughts, Richard?
Super Bowl hangover and Valentine's Day all in the same week. So networking wasn't a priority. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I think the good thing is we're getting a lot more activity out of the group. What I would encourage all of you to do is we would love to have more of you participating on the inside the group, sharing stuff inside of there. If you've got any posts that you're putting out there, we're trying to be real diligent about going in and watching anything y'all post online and seeing if we can post it back up into the group. But the more help you can give us, the better. The more activity we get going on in there. Certainly, if you see stuff inside the group, I'd encourage you to go in and go ahead and like it and post it or repost it or whatever.
Yeah, I talk to my colleagues about this all the time in real estate, that every day we're all going down our independent rabbit holes, sometimes multiple rabbit holes. And so it's just uncovering knowledge daily. And when you look at a group like this, where we have close to 4,000 business professionals in the group, all going down different trails, there's a lot of wealth of knowledge that can be shared in this group. Yeah. So we encourage everybody to come across something that they think is interesting that can benefit the group. Please share.
Absolutely. We're doing our best to share our stuff in there, but we don't want to make it look like the Jeff and Richard show every day.
Exactly.
Putting information out there. From your perspective, Richard, I know we've done these occasionally where we talk a little bit about our respective disciplines. I think certainly we want to share other people's focus. If y'all are listening out there and are interested in participating in one of these podcasts, I encourage you to reach out to either of us, make a comment on one of the posts or on this post specifically, or just direct message us directly if you want to participate in one of these, because we'd love to have you to share your knowledge and get your information.
Yeah, you look at it from a standpoint of your financial background and my real estate background and all of that. And obviously, people can look at it as that focus, but it's a lot bigger than that. We're talking about the economic environment as a whole when we look across those two and many other technologies and industries that are out there. So I know from my standpoint, after last year being a little challenging, you could actually sense and feel the enthusiasm coming back into the marketplace in the last 6 weeks, really. Okay. And so it's encouraging for all of us that we're seeing that. And obviously we're seeing it across the board, as you can speak to, in the economic news and things like that we're seeing out there, that being positive, always with the one foot in the water, sticking the toe in the water, so to speak, because there's so much happening globally in the world that, out of our control. But the good thing is there's optimism and energy in the marketplace. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I figured today what we could do is just break out into a little bit of our individual disciplines and talk about what our take is on the future for this year. So do you want to start off and talk a little bit about the Austin real estate market?
Sure. I talk about this, obviously just talking about the sense of it out there right now, where we talk about real estate all the time. It's location and of course, the house itself and things like that, and the property itself. I actually do, which makes me a little bit unique, is that I do residential, commercial land development and farm and ranch. So I see it
Okay.
across different sectors in the real estate business, which is good. Good for my clients and good for me too, because it gives me some diversity. But when you're looking and seeing what's out there, there is optimism in the marketplace. I was talking to an appraiser yesterday in regards to some questions I had about the market. And he was saying that his sense is that the market year over year is about down between 12 and 15% from where it was last year,
Hmm.
which kind of has borne out in the numbers that we've seen the pullback. And obviously, we've seen interest rates. I think it was their 23-year high or something like that back in November when they hit 8%. We're seeing that pull back. It's hovering around that 6.5%, depending upon your situation. But the projections is that towards the end of the year, we're going to see it come down from that, so maybe around the 6 or whatever. Of course, as we all know, you can get 5 experts in a room and get 5 different opinions. So I try to listen to a lot of different people that are the so-called experts and get a consensus out of that as what's going on. But it does sound like that there's some, positive, interest rate moves coming in the future. Um, I went and saw. It was interesting. The other thing too that I heard about was was looking at is that last year the existing home sales from National Associations of Realtors, it was at a 26-year low, which
Hmm.
kind of correlates with interest rates going up and a lot of uncertainty in the market, people worrying about what was going to happen economically.
Yeah.
But that this year, and then I saw another economist that was been in the business about 35 years, and he was talking about that. Like, he ran the Texas A&M Real Estate Center for several years and stuff like that, so he's pretty accredited. And he was talking about that the sweet spot for real estate, in his opinion, is the next 24 months. He goes
Hmm.
with the pullback of the pricing and the kind of easing of the interest rates. He feels like in the next 24 months, it's a really good time to get into the market. And he was saying that one of the things that's out there that we're all going to have to pay for is, frankly, the debt. And he goes,
Yeah.
the more and more the debt's going to start coming due over the next 24 months. It's already happening. And he goes, nobody wants to talk about it, but we're probably going to look at increased taxes and a volatile stock market, which you could probably speak to better than I.
Hmm.
But the migration into real estate is just going to be harder and harder to get in, just because the value is going up. And I know that I have a couple of clients that are actually builders, work with builders, and I know they're definitely gearing up and with a very positive attitude too. So they're looking for a very good 2024. And we continue to hear that there's more demand than there are inventory as far as homes and things like that too. So my advice to my buyer clients, and they've been heeding me so far, which is good, is that if you're in a position to purchase now with the pullback, go ahead and get
Hmm.
in and then consider refinancing or whatever in a few years when rates come down.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see that things are going to stabilize as far as pricing goes. I think we're already seeing that. And I think we're going to start turning the corner on that then, where pricing is going to start going back up again. So
Hmm.
we just have to see.
Yeah.
How's that kind of correlate to what you're seeing?
So if you watch my other podcast, The Sense of Things, my friend Ron Lang and I do, we have a running joke that the thing I want to come back in life is either a stock analyst, an economist, or a weatherman, because you can be wrong about your job most of the time and still succeed. But I think
Well, if we're wishing, I just want to be independently wealthy.
if I have to come back with a
Yeah,
job, that's what I
yeah.
want to be reincarnated as, and specifically an economist, because they can be totally wrong, and they're more wrong than the stupid groundhog. But I think that the interesting part about this year is, if you ask me what I think the stock market's going to do, I think we're going to have a good year. I don't think we're going to have a great year. We had a kind of year last year. If you look at the flat out numbers, oh my God, we had this blowout year in the S&P 500. But if you look at the individual components of the S&P 500 by industry, you had information technology, basically technology in general, was up close to 22% for the year. Everything else was basically flat or down. So we had this bifurcated market where everything was tech, and it was really about 10 stocks that drove the index. So it made it look amazing, but the market, what they call breadth, not breath as in breath, but breadth, the market breadth was not great last year. What I feel like is probably going to happen this year, what's likely, is you're going to start to see more of the market breadth come out. Some of those high flyers, I could clearly see having a little bit of a pause this year. The thing that's driving most of the market right now has been artificial intelligence. So it's funny because it reminds me of the dot-com days a little bit. Now, I don't think we're at that big of an issue, but we're almost at that dot-com stage of anything that had a dot-com back in the early 2000s. Oh my God, it didn't matter if they made money or not. And it's been that way this year. Anything that the analyst calls, I don't care if you're Coca-Cola or you're whatever, you've got to have some kind of AI conversation of how you're using AI or whatever in your business. We're all using AI. Most of us are using AI in our businesses. I look at it from my perspective. I see this, especially from content creators. AI is a game changer. And I'll give you the best explanation of that. I am finishing up a book that's getting ready to launch this month. I used AI to effectively do all the research, to create the outline for it, to also create a bunch of the photos and things like that. I've used AI to create. For, let's call it $20 a month for the 2 AI services that I pay for, I saved myself probably $1,000 worth of just cost of buying artwork and just the cost of my time creating all
I
that
was going to
stuff.
say time. Yeah.
It's changing it. And then yesterday, basically, I went in and I'm creating a companion website where it's got like the tools and everything else. I used AI over 2 days to create 8 separate tools that are part of that website. Then I use those tools with AI to create scripts for the videos that'll go with that. So that would have taken me in the past probably 2 weeks of time to do. I did it in less than 6 hours. It's a game changer. And I think that's coming out farther and farther. Now, what does that mean for the economy? That means that companies that aren't embracing AI in some way, shape, or form, I think are going to fall the way of the buggy whip a little bit. I think if you're in any kind of content creation business or anything like that, where let's say you're the writer that's doing things, you better start embracing AI pretty quick. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself out of a job. And like I said, it's not perfect. I couldn't use it to write the book. What I ended up having to do is I did all the stuff that it could gather information and put it into a logical order. That got me there. And then I had to do the hard part, which is actually sit down and write the book. The next book that I will be putting out, it'll be fully AI and then using a ghostwriter to do part of the work for me on it. It's the way of the world. It's the way the world is changing. I think that's going to continue to drive the stock market a little bit this year. From the interest rate point of view, so this is my take on your economist's view of interest rates. This morning, we had the CPI for Q4, and it came in way hotter than they were expecting it. And so if you looked at what the market was betting on, oh, March, the Fed's going to start cutting interest rates and everything else, there is not a chance in hell that they're going to cut interest rates at this point. And the estimate was they could have as high as 6 interest rate cuts this year. There ain't going to be 6 cuts. I'm sorry. Might see a cut in June, as early as June, maybe. But I think if inflation continues on this path, which it's accelerating again instead of decelerating, it went down a little bit and now it's starting to re-accelerate a little bit. The Fed is not going to pull interest rates back. They're just not, because they honestly would like to see interest rates, or they would like to see inflation around 2%. And we're still running, with today's numbers, we're running year over year 3.9%. So we're almost running double. The odds of the rates being pulled back, I think we're going to continue to hover in this 4 to, let's call it 4.3%. will be in that range most of this year. For your folks that are buying houses, what I would say is get used to the rates that you have, and it's not likely to change very much unless we see something massively happen in the economy where it starts to implode upon itself. That's really the only time you're going to see interest rates go down. And we're not seeing big layoffs. You're seeing some layoffs in the tech industry,
Mhm.
and we see that a little bit more here in Austin because we've got so many tech companies. But the problem is the tech industry is able to absorb those folks now. So they might get laid off from one company and end up working for another company right away if they've got good special skills.
I completely agree with what you just said
Mm,
about the rates and everything like that. What I'm actually speaking to, and of course, again, you get different perspectives from different people, but the consensus was that we were going to see an easing of rates towards
mm,
the end of the year.
yeah.
Now, I've never believed, frankly, that we were. I was hopeful, but I never believed that we were going to see 4, 5, and 6%, six cuts in this
Yeah.
year. I just didn't see it. And if you listen to the Fed, what was it on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
basically said that. He goes, we're not going to take our foot off the gas until
Nope.
it really makes sense. And we see where it, and right now it's going the opposite direction. I totally agree with that. And the other thing too is we're not going to see, I will be very surprised if we ever see 2.5%, 3% again in our lifetimes. That
Mm,
was just artificial. And
yeah.
so we were really talking maybe the 4.5 to 6 range, maybe
Mm,
5 to 6
yeah.
more likely.
Which
And
honestly, that's actually normal.
totally,
If you look in history, I remember when my parents bought our house when we first moved to Texas. So we bought our house in, I think, 76. And my parents were shocked that they got an 8% interest rate. And if you'd fast forward another 4 years from there, interest rates were close to 18% at that point.
I,
All relative.
I think it's a lot like gas pricing, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're paying $3, then we're paying $4, and it's all of a sudden it's, oh my God, gas is so expensive. And then we get back to $3 and we're like, well, this is so much better than
Yeah, I
it
know.
was before.
I
I
filled up
mean,
my
it's
truck the other
it's
day, and when gas was at its high point, it was close to probably $80 to fill my truck up. And I think
yeah,
I did get a little discount because of where we shop
sure,
our groceries, but I think it cost me like $35 to fill up my truck.
yeah,
So it's all relative.
yeah. So
And
it's what you're used to. So and it's
but the
kind of the same
difference
thing where
is
you're,
I probably paid $200 more for groceries now than I
yeah, how
did
many
before.
groceries?
So I saved myself $60 on gas, but I
Oh my
paid
God.
$200 more on groceries.
That's where the rubber meets the road, as far as I'm concerned, is that we can hear all politics aside, you can
Yeah.
hear all the positive economic news and everything that's going on out there. But when you go to the grocery store, that's what hits everybody.
Yep.
It's like, my God, can't get out of here for any, it's a fortune. But back to your question, what you're talking about AI, it wasn't that long ago you brought up Chat GPT to me, and I
Yeah.
was like, "What's that?" We were
Yeah.
kind of going through it, and I remember, to your point, I remember we just gave it a real estate scenario, a buying scenario, and the key things to look at, and I was shocked at how in just a few seconds it put that together. Now, to your
Yeah.
point, it still needs to be, it's a tool, it still needs
Mhm.
to be reviewed and all that, but it was actually really good.
Yeah.
And fast forward to today, there's AI in everything that I do. It's analyzing my clients on a daily basis and their home situations and making recommendations and things for my clients to help them, help me better help them. It's forecasting in the future. It's doing, when I do my market analysis on properties, it's doing an AI analysis of the neighborhoods and the actual like properties that are out there.
Mm.
It's across the board. It's given me more tools in my tool belt to help my
Yeah.
clients. And it's, I don't know that there's any business out there that's not being touched by AI, whether they know it or not.
Mm.
The other thing that's funny now is that watching the Motley Fools and all that stuff on Facebook constantly, now it's AI too. Now,
Yeah.
now it's, we're beyond AI. Now you should be investing in AI
Sure.
too. So it's
I look at
so
it I look at it in my business from the financial advisory perspective. I have a trading strategy that I've basically used for 5 years personally. And I implemented it with my clients. And one of the reasons I was able to implement it before, it was really manual. It took a lot of work once a month to go through and do the analysis
I
and
remember
everything
those
else.
days.
And now it basically the last day of the month, I have an AI predictive AI that I developed, and I've just trained it. And I'm not a computer scientist. It's very basic, but it's okay from that perspective. It takes a lot of the work that used to take me pretty much the last week of the month to put together all the analysis and then codify that and put it into a trading strategy for the next month. And now it's less than an hour of my time. I can hit a button and it goes through, does all the analysis, looks at all the different things. It has a pass go, type of a philosophy on some of the stuff that's in that portfolio. And boom, I'm ready to go at the beginning of the month at that point. I think personally, we're seeing it in all different things from content creation to real estate, finances, and everything else. So it's interesting to me to see how fast that has happened, because I had not used any form of AI before like January of last year. And that's when I started experimenting with ChatGPT, and I shared it with a lot of my friends and everybody else. Okay, you're nuts. What the hell is this? How's this going to change my world? And it can make your world move much faster. And
Well, it's for the science fiction buffs out there, it can be
yeah,
completely scary because if you think about it, it's woven into every facet of our lives.
yeah,
Everything is touched by AI, whether you realize it or not. You start thinking about it, it's wow, and how fast it's been adopted into our daily lives. It's
yeah.
nuts. But
Well, it's
but
funny, kind of has an Nader scenario and all that. If you ever are concerned about that, search out, you can probably find it, Tucker Carlson's interview of Elon Musk.
mhm,
And he just a long interview, just let Elon be Elon. But there's this insanely good segment on AI and Elon's take on AI. And it was very funny because, and he's weird, but he's very unique about the way he thinks about things.
sure.
And it was so funny because he basically was talking about AI, and I don't think that AI is going to try and kill us off. It almost gets enjoyment out of seeing what we do, and we're entertainment for AI more
Right.
than it's for AI.
Yeah.
It's like us watching TV. It's watching us and not trying to eliminate us, but it's trying to figure us out a little bit and all that. And so I don't think, he goes, we're more entertainment for AI than anything else at this point. So
Interesting perspective.
I
Yeah.
don't think we're going
Yeah.
anywhere anytime soon. But like I said, I think it's everywhere. It's being used. Almost every one of the software packages I use has got some kind of AI or something in there, some good, some horrible. But I think embrace it and use it to be much more efficient. This is the next, my prediction, this is the next productivity boost that we're going to see in the stock market. We saw it really coming into the mid 90s when I got into the industry, into the financial industry, and we saw a massive boost in productivity from 94 to 2000. And I see this as that next big boost. And this is probably a next big boost that could really boost productivity for the next 5 to 10 years. So embrace it, accept it. It's there. It's not going to kill us, as far as I know. And if it does, I'm not going to be around, so it doesn't matter.
No, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. I think that, kind of tying it back to Austin Top Guns, we're looking forward to a collaborative and year of networking with the group. And we've talked about how we've set up the third Thursday, every third Thursday of the month
Yeah.
into November. We'll change it in November just because of Thanksgiving, and lay off at December because of Christmas and parties and everything like that. But really, for the next several months, we'll have it on the third Thursday. So it's an opportunity for us all to get out and re-engage. I was just watching a thing this morning on Mardi Gras, and they were talking about that it's back now after the
Yeah.
pandemic, that it's just going like crazy over there. So I felt the same way in their discussions at our last networking event. People were like going, it just seems like it's been a while. We've got out face to face and
Yeah.
actually had conversations about,
The pandemic's been
yeah.
really
So,
over for almost a year and a half, but it's still, people are just now starting to come out of their
well, very,
bunkers.
very similar to what we just talked about at the start, about it already being mid-February. It just takes a
Yeah.
little while to get back into the flow again. But look forward to meeting as many of us, our Top Gun counterparts as we can and engaging with them. The whole philosophy of the group is collaboration from
Mm.
all different perspectives. Please take the time out and come meet and greet us at our networking events. And please also, as you were speaking to earlier, if you got interesting things that you're running across out there, share with the group on the LinkedIn platform. Lots of interesting things that are happening in the world today, whether it's AI or anything else. Let's educate each other. And as always, if anybody out there needs help or introductions or whatever with the group, just reach out to Jeff and I, and we're happy to help any way we can. So,
Absolutely. Folks, thank you. We're looking forward to getting to know all of you this year. Our big goal for this year is to engage with more and more of you. And certainly, I've set connection requests, and Richard's going to be sending connection requests out to all of you. Make sure that you connect with us. We're not trying to sell you anything, we're just trying to get connected because it's actually easier to communicate on LinkedIn if we are connected with you first level. That said, thanks a lot for listening, and we look forward to bringing these to you down the road.
have a good week.